Lab H, automating a business process. You know, in a lot of ways, this lab is kind of your final exam. And we obviously have a lot more nuggets to get through, but this is where we're really going to take everything that you've been doing in what, 60, 70 nuggets that have preceded this and bring it all together and completely automate something. So make sure you're taking some time to review that lab document and really give it the old college try before you watch this nugget. As always, the purpose of this nugget is to review the lab items, and the assumption is that you've taken some time to download the lab document and tried to complete the lab items on your own. What I'm going to show you are just sample solutions. They're not necessarily the only correct answers. Now, there are probably as many ways to do this as there are blades of grass in the lawn, but this is the way I chose to do it. I don't want you to feel that you did it wrong if you came up with a different answer to this lab. So I created a script called new-companyyuser.ps1. You'll notice that this is just a script. There's no function in here. I did start it off with commandlet binding, and you'll notice that I told it supports should process with a low confirm impact. And it's because this is making changes. You'll see in a minute where I actually use that. So for the major pieces of information on the lab set, I had to prompt for these pieces of information, and I choose to do that by marking them as mandatory parameters. And that means PowerShell will take care of prompting for them if a user tries to run this without providing that information. I've also opened the possibility for this information to be piped in from the pipeline. I can certainly see someone maybe using a CSV file that has columns named first name, last name, department title, city, postal code, importing that CSV file, piping it to this script, and I'll be able to pick up those values. For that reason, each of these only accepts a single string. You'll notice that there's no that thing that would make it accept multiple strings. So if you're running this manually, you only get to create one user. If you're running it by piping things to it, that'll still work to accept multiple things because in the pipeline, my script is only going to get one thing at a time. So that means I have a process block, and if I'm running in the pipeline, then that's how it'll know what to execute here. You'll notice I'm using some verbose output, creating user, blah, blah, blah. I'm setting up the command in a script block, and you'll notice that the first thing in the script block is a parameter block. And so this is how I'm going to pass information into this script block to run this new AD user command. And you'll notice for the SAM account name and name, I'm creating first name.last name as indicated in the lab. I kind of hate having to use the backtick character like this, but I also wanted this to be easy to read on the screen. You don't necessarily have to do it this exact way. Anyway, because I indicated that this supports should process, I'm checking to see, and this line here is going to create the what if or the confirm prompt if this is run with either what if or confirm. So it's going to indicate that I'm about to create a new user, first name.last name. And if they say yes, then I'm invoking a command. Now the command I'm invoking is this one that I set up here, and that's why I went ahead and set this up separately in a variable, just to kind of visually separate it out a little bit. I'm passing in all of my data, so these are the parameters that I've been provided, and I'm passing them in the same order that this param block is expecting them. Running that on the DC computer using the employee provisioning endpoint. Now, I'm presuming that whoever runs this is a member of that personnel managers group, and they have already got permission to use this endpoint. So next is I'm going to attempt to create a folder. So again, another what if and confirm prompt right here before I go ahead and attempt to create that. Now, the presumption is, and this was given to me in the lab, is that members of that user group, this personnel managers user group, do in fact have permission to create shared folders and folders. So I'm assuming that the permission to access $, already exists because that's what the lab said I would need to do. And then I'm going to, having created the folder, I'm then going to create the shared folder. Now, there's a little trick to that. Here we've got another what if or confirm prompt. This new SMB share is absolutely capable of talking to a remote computer, but it does not accept a computer name parameter. Instead, I noticed that it will accept a SIM session. So to begin with, I'm spinning up a SIM session to the computer where the actual folder is, so I can tell that computer to create the shared folder. And you'll notice that I'm closing that SIM session when I'm done with it. And a word on that in just a minute. So the last thing we've got here is I'm giving it the name of the shared folder. The path is a local path to that computer. So I'm not using UNC, but that's the local version of that path. And I'm specifying that the newly created user, as well as the domain administrators and personnel managers group, will have full control. The lab didn't say what the domain name was, so I'm just putting domain in there as a placeholder. Now, an inefficiency here is that if someone does run this by piping a CSV file to it, each data row in the CSV file is going to be spinning up and then closing a sim session, which is a little bit, just like as I'm looking here talking to you about it, it strikes me as a little bit inefficient. What I could do probably is move this up to a begin block. So that happens the first data row, and then it'll stay open, and then in an end block, I can go ahead and clean it up. And my indentation is not beautiful here, and I apologize for that, but it is what it, oh, you know why? It's because this needs to go after the process block, not in the process block. Yeah, and I should probably get in the habit of doing this because it makes those things a little bit easier to keep track of, which curly bracket closes what. So anyway, that's sort of the approach I took. That should get the job done. It should accomplish everything that the lab asked. And you'll notice that I didn't really have to create any new tools to do this. The tools I need, new AD user, new item, and new SMB share, already exist. Those were provided to me in PowerShell. So all I needed to do was sequence those together in this controller script. So that's our quick review. Keep in mind, as always, just because you got a slightly different answer doesn't mean you were wrong. That's why I call these sample solutions and not answers. I hope this has been informative for you, and I'd like to thank you for viewing.